If there are people in this province, including in the legislature after June 2nd, who are prepared to focus on those priorities that I have, I'll work with any one of them. Just one person I know for sure who needs to be stopped at all costs, and that's Doug Ford, and that's what I'm working hard to do.
Well, the countdown to Ontario's election day is officially on, and still people across the province are confused about who to vote for. No worries, we're here to help. Hey, welcome to News You Can Use. I'm your host, Brandon Gomez, and before we give you any more details, I need you to do a few things like subscribing to this channel, tapping the notification bell, smash the like button, and don't forget to follow us across all of our social media. The details are in the description below. So as you know by now, we have invited all of the major party leaders onto the show for a one-on-one. Almost all of them have agreed to an interview. One of them still hasn't. We await. In the meantime though, today we have Ontario Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca, who's going to share the Liberal platform. Let's bring him in. Stephen Del Duca, leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. Thanks so much for joining me here on the BG Show and News You Can Use.
My pleasure, thanks for this chance.
Well, I'm excited to speak with you and to hear more about what the Liberals are offering, but I just want to ask, are you running to be Premier of the province or are you running to be the official opposition?
No, running to be Premier 100% because there is so much that needs to be done in this province for my kids, for my parents and grandparents and people like our family across this province who are hurting and they need help.
What do you feel though when you look at the polls? I know politicians say, I hate the polls, I hate the polls, I hate the polls, but the polls right now are still predicting a Doug Ford majority.
Well, that's why we have election campaigns. So we're engaged in this incredible conversation right now, all four of us who are running to be Premier. I feel really good about the momentum that's clearly building around the Ontario Liberal team and our plan that's going to make this incredible province a place to grow, which is what I'm focused on.
I saw that you're wearing blue. We joked about this off camera. Are you trying to make people understand that you're going to bridge the divide between the Conservatives and the Liberals and the Progressives?
Collaborating is an important thing, but I just felt that blue goes best with my hairstyle today. So how about that? Is that okay?
You got jokes. Alrighty, let's talk about the platform.
Okay.
And for all the leaders, I've asked them, for the first part of this conversation, if we can refrain from bringing up Doug Ford, we just want to hear about the Liberal plan.
Happy to do that.
The big thing that we've heard from our audience, affordability.
Yes.
And housing affordability and prices at the gas pumps,
Yep.
all these things have been their number one issue.
Understandable.
What is the Liberal plan to address that? Give me your top 3 highlights.
Okay, so first of all, I signed a 19-point affordability pledge. I won't go through all 19. I'll go through the top 3. So buck a ride province-wide.
Okay.
$1 transit fares, $40 for a transit monthly pass. If you live here in Toronto and you take the TTC every single day or every single month, you're talking about more than $1,000 a year back in your pocket.
Okay.
Prepared foods under $20, so you go to a bakery or a grocery store or pick up lunch at a coffee truck if you're working on a construction site, everything under $20, prepared food, 8% off because we're going to get rid of the provincial HST, and then bringing back rent control. We know that for tenants across this province, it's a real struggle to make the rent every single month because they are struggling. We're going to bring back real rent control everywhere.
Okay, what about actually for people who want to buy a home? Because listen, housing price, doesn't matter if you live in Toronto, anywhere across Ontario,
anywhere,
it's extremely expensive.
It is.
So can that actually be fixed? Realistically?
It can be fixed, and I'll tell you what, we have a housing affordability plan in our platform, 1.5 million new homes over a decade we're going to build. Something I'm really excited about, we're going to create a new Ontario Home Building Corporation. And the reason we're going to create that is because we need the province to be back in the business of actually helping to fix this problem. So that new Home Building Corporation, every single unit of housing it sells will actually be available only to first-time home buyers. I think about all the surplus land that's owned already by you and I, provincial government surplus land. Our Home Building Corporation will go in there, unlock that land, build those units, and again, first-time home buyers who are having such difficulty getting into the market will be the focus of that Home Building Corporation that we're going to deliver.
Is that going to hamper house prices where they are right now? Because some people have built up a lot of equity. That's the challenge, right?
Yeah, I don't think it will.
Okay.
I really don't, because we're going to target first-time home buyers. And when I talk to a lot of parents and grandparents in this province, they are deeply concerned, as are my wife and I, about our young daughters who are 14 and 11. Will they ever be able to afford to live anywhere near the neighborhood where they grew up? Right now, the answer is no. I want to change that. That's why we've got the plan to make that happen.
Okay, gas prices, because they are sky high.
They are.
Everybody's talking about it. It don't matter where you go.
That's true.
We spoke with Andrea Horvath, the leader of the NDP. She said that she's going to regulate gas prices. Is that something that you guys are open to? Is there a plan to tackle gas prices?
We have a real plan. With respect to Ms. Horvath, the plan that she's put forward isn't a real plan. It's been proven time and time again in parts of Canada where they've tried to regulate gas prices. It doesn't actually do what's required. That's why the Ontario Liberal plan will take 5.7 cents per litre off the gas tax come July 1st and 5.3 cents off the fuel tax for a period of 6 months to get us through this hump, because it is really tough right now. But we're also going to do the rest of what we are committing to in our affordability pledge. I already talked about Buck a Ride, I already talked about prepared foods, before and after school care in this province. Right now it's an average of $25 a day for those families who use it. We're going to bring that down to $10 a day within 100 days of taking office. $1,000 for old age security pension top-ups for vulnerable seniors. That's why the 19-point plan for the affordability crisis is something I'm really proud of.
Alrighty, we got to talk about COVID recovery in the future.
Yeah.
Listen, a big thing that we've heard from our audience is that some of them are still remain unvaccinated. Okay. And their workplaces require them to be vaccinated, and they can't go back to the office. Where do you stand on that issue? Do you support mandatory vaccinations in the workplace, or do you think that those things should be torn apart?
Now look, so I took a very strong stand from the very beginning. I was the first provincial leader to call for mandatory vaccines in long-term care, in healthcare, in education. I was the first provincial leader to call for a province-wide reliable vaccine certificate when the other leaders kind of dithered and delayed on this. The science is settled. We know that vaccines save people's lives. That's why we've taken a strong stand on this. I know people have concerns. I think it's important for us together to work on boosting confidence, listening to the science and our medical professionals that we have in this province. But I really strongly urge everyone, do the right thing, get the vaccine, let's get through the rest of this challenging time that's been so difficult, and let's get to the other side together.
What do you say to that person, though, who doesn't want to get vaccinated for whatever? It could be religious beliefs or whatever, but their job is at risk or has been at risk. Well, what message do you have for them?
Yeah, well, what I've said all the way through is in the Ontario Human Rights Code, there are already allowances or exemptions for people who have, perhaps it's a conscientious concern or objection, a religious objection or concern. I think every policy should always adhere to the Ontario Human Rights Code, but on balance, for those who are understandably vaccine hesitant because there might be some issues they've dealt with in the past, I think it's important for us collectively to help boost the confidence, more education, more advertising, but advertising to target the message to boost that confidence. But on balance, we have to understand the science is settled on this. These vaccines have saved countless lives here in Ontario and across the world.
Okay, students, they've been loud about this, okay?
As they should be.
Their debt has increased. OSAP is not what it used to be.
No.
The price of tuition continues to go up every single year. What is the plan for students?
Can I talk about Doug Ford now?
No, not yet, not yet.
Okay, so it's a glaring problem that we have in the province. The Ontario Liberal Plan will actually make OSAP far more effective and far more affordable for students. So first of all, we're going to massively increase the number of grants versus loans. We're going to get rid of all of the interest on student debt so that if you borrow $1, you only have to pay back the $1, not the $+ plus 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 plus. Okay. And we're also going to make sure that more families can access loans, again, but primarily grants. And there are certain professions, whether it's early childhood educators, personal support workers, healthcare or medical, nurses, doctors, and others who are prepared to practice or to work in underserviced parts of the province who will have their tuition waived altogether. That's a very targeted approach for those professions where we need more in order to rebuild on the other side of COVID. But on balance, under the Ontario Liberal Plan, post-secondary will be a lot more affordable and accessible for Ontario students across the board, in particular, those who need it most.
So I see your plan in terms of when it comes to requiring OSAP, but a lot of students have reached out to us saying, but why does the price of tuition go up every single year? It's the highest in the entire country here in this province.
Right.
And I mean, it's crazy astronomical increases every single year. Yeah. Why not just cap it and regulate the price of tuition?
Well, so a couple things to remember. When you build an OSAP plan or program the way that I'm determined to do it, you can't just look at the cost of tuition. You have to look at the actual cost of tuition. So if we have an OSAP plan in place, like we did once in this province 4 years ago, before someone came to office who shall remain nameless.
He's doing well with not saying his name.
That particular OSAP plan, for example, if you came from a household that had an income of less than $50,000, you paid zero by way of tuition. So the tuition might have been set here, but you paid nothing. That changed 4 years ago. We want to bring back that kind of system. So it's not just about what tuition is, it's what the actual impact is to a student and their family. And that's what we're focused on, making easier and more affordable.
All right, healthcare.
Yeah.
We all know healthcare has been on the top of everybody's tongue since the pandemic started. Even before that, nurses are extremely upset. We've interviewed a few of them here on this show.
Right.
What does healthcare look like under a provincial Liberal government?
Yeah, so first of all, it's strong. It would be strong, it would be resilient, it would provide exceptional care. So, in Ontario right now, there are close to 1 million people, the same size as the city of Ottawa, Ontario's second largest city, who are waiting for surgeries, in some cases cancer surgeries, or waiting for a diagnostic procedure like an MRI or a CT scan. It's 1 million people who are waiting. And currently there's no real plan to deal with this. So in our platform, we will invest $1 billion over 2 years to clear that backlog. But here's the really important part. We're going to clear it exclusively through our public healthcare system, not private hospitals, public healthcare system. More nurses who are respected and valued, because we're going to get rid of Bill 124, which is immediately first legislative priority for an Ontario Liberal government, getting rid of Bill 124, repealing it, and then making sure that our nurses and our personal support workers and other frontline workers, the real heroes, can actually bargain for their contracts freely and fairly the way that they should. We're going to run our operating rooms and our MRI machines and our CT scanners regularly, weekends, weeknights, 24/7 if that's required. 2 years, we're going to clear that surgical backlog. We're going to add, I believe it's 3,000 new beds to our hospitals across this province, new spaces. And we're also going to make sure that we have 100,000 new healthcare workers over 6 years by bringing in all the talent. I talked earlier about waiving tuition altogether for those who are prepared to practice their profession, their career in underserviced communities. We have 15,000 internationally educated nurses who can't get their credentials recognized in Ontario right now. They're sitting up in the bleachers. We need them down on the field working, pursuing their careers, their professions. We need that. All of this is included in our plan.
Okay. I do want to ask you about the rise of discrimination, hate, racism in this province. I've posed this question to Mike Schreiner from the Green Party, Andrea Horvath from the NDP. I'm posing it to you now. We have heard from our audience that they're tired of politicians saying, we have to be a tolerant society. A lot of our audience has said, why don't we criminalize the use of saying the N-word? Why don't we criminalize, discriminatory acts? Where do you stand on that?
Well, first of all, I think everything we have to be open to the conversation about how we can actually root out this intolerant behavior that's not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. I'll tell you, one of the ways that Ontario Liberals want to do that is by once again properly funding and creating as a standalone ministerial responsibility the Anti-Racism Directorate. That was something that existed prior to 4 years ago. We had my good friend, Michael Coteau, was the minister responsible for the Anti-Racism Directorate. He did a phenomenal job. He actually made sure there was proper funding in place. And that's to tackle all forms of racism, all forms of intolerance. The current government got rid of it. They actually underfunded it and put it in with the ministry that's responsible for Ontario's prisons. Now, how does that make any sense to anybody, right? It doesn't. So a standalone responsibility. When I talk about bringing back an optional grade 13 in Ontario and structuring it and building in a real curriculum, one of the things that I'm keen to see is that we build in civics education, citizenship education that helps people filter through or filter out a lot of the hate and the racism and the intolerance that we see online, and helps people, I hope, with our plan, distinguish between what's real, what's not real, as we build towards a more equal society. The Our London Family Act, which was brought forward by the National Council of Canadian Muslims in the aftermath of the terrorist attack in London, where that family lost their lives simply because they were out for a walk. We will pass that legislation again as a legislative priority. These are just some of the steps, because racism, whether it's anti-black racism or it's anti-Indigenous racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, all forms of discrimination and hate have no place in the province that I'm fighting to build.
Alrighty. I want to go back to your promises, because there are a lot of campaign promises, you're saying, and that you're offering to voters.
Yes, proudly.
How are you going to pay for that, though?
Well, here's the
let me tell you. Taxes are already high.
Okay,
people are already struggling to survive.
They are.
So how are we going to pay for that? Or how are you going to pay for that if you become premier? Not me, you.
Well, I'll be doing it on your behalf. So let's say we. How are we going to pay for it? It's the best way to describe it. So what I'm really excited about in our plan is that it's fully costed, and it's been fully costed from day one.
What do you mean fully costed?
So you can literally go to ontarioliberal.ca, you can pull down the document of our platform, and you can look at somewhere in 80 to 90 pages, I know, that you're going to be reading this later today for sure. And right in that, you will see all of the tables that show year over year for the next 4 years, what every single promise will cost us, what will be required, and exactly what the province's budget will look like every single year. So what I can tell you is, we anticipate being able to rebuild everything that matters: education, the environment, healthcare, seniors care, students, all of it. And we believe we will still be able to balance the province's books in the last budget before the next election in 2026.
But how? Because Mike Schreiner, for example, he said, you know what, we're going to scrap the cancellation of license plate sticker fees. That's like $1 billion that goes back into provincial coffers that can pay for these programs. What's a tangible example?
Well, a tangible example of how we're going to pay for it?
Yeah.
Well, because the province every year has anticipated revenues, and we're not relying on Doug Ford's numbers. Oh, sorry, the Conservative government's numbers. Oops, I'm in trouble now. We're actually relying on the Financial Accountability Officer, an independent officer of the legislature, who has said this is what they anticipate economic growth will look like over the next 4 years, and then we take the revenues that will be generated from all of the existing taxes we have in this province, and we're able to actually pay for everything I'm talking about, everything Ontarians need.
So you're not looking at raising taxes?
We're raising 2 taxes in particular.
Which ones?
I'm proud of these. Corporations in this province that earn over $1 billion in profit will see a small increase in their corporate income tax. And individual Ontarians who earn over $500,000 a year will go from 13.16% in their tax bracket up to 15.16%. For every dollar they earn over $500,000, they'll pay an extra 2 points.
Okay.
Those 2 commitments, those 2 tax increases, targeting the biggest corporations and the wealthiest Ontarians, will help us pay for that $20 prepared food 8% off discount that we're going to give back to the people of Ontario. So again, it's fully costed, it is responsible, and we'll deliver on it starting on day 1.
Okay. I want to ask you this question, candidly. Okay?
Okay.
Again, the polls are the polls, and I'm not even a guy who really believes in all the polls, right? I like to talk to people. That's why I'm always out on the streets.
Yeah.
But the reality is, when you do look at, if we were to use the polls, for example, Doug Ford is leading right now, and the 2 primary progressive parties, the Liberals and the NDP, are behind in second and third place. But when you look at the total support of progressives across this province, it does outweigh the Conservative support. So why choose Stephen Del Duca and the Liberals over Andrea Horwath and the NDP?
Yeah, so first of all, the past 4 years, we've seen tons of cuts, lots of chaos, the havoc. I think it's been really unsettling for people that the current Conservative government doesn't have a plan that actually supports people, and they're not able to deliver in a competent way. And on the other hand, a few weeks ago, we saw the Ontario NDP come out with a platform, and in just the span of a few weeks, they've revised that plan 6 or 7 times. When they came out with the plan, there was no costing attached. Several days later, they released costing. The costing isn't really effective in terms of there's nothing in there to truly end for-profit long-term care, and there's a series of other examples. It's kind of like they're making it up as they go along. After the past 4 years of chaos and havoc, Ontarians don't want to take the risk of someone else who equally doesn't have a plan, isn't able to execute in the way that we need them to right now. Only Ontario Liberals have the new, exciting, talented team, combined with a responsible and forward-looking plan that is fully costed and has been consistent and strong from day 1. We are ready. We are ready to deliver, not in 4 years, not with empty words, but starting the important work of rediscovering, rebuilding, and recovering Ontario on day 1.
Okay, I did ask Andrea Horwath this, but if Doug Ford, theoretically, okay, people...
He said the name, not me. That's fine, he said the name.
We can now bring him into the conversation.
Okay.
Is held to a minority. Yeah. Would the Liberals and the NDP, or the NDP and the Liberals, work together like the federal NDP and the federal Liberals?
Yeah. So here's what I've said about this. I said this months ago on the record, I've said it repeatedly. There is one person I know for sure who needs to be stopped at all costs and should not be Premier of Ontario, and that is Doug Ford. I've said that repeatedly. But first of all, when you use the federal example, let's remember Prime Minister Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh, they waited until the people had their say. That's coming up soon here in Ontario. We'll know next Thursday. I have said repeatedly, I'm prepared, and frankly, I'd be proud to work with any Ontarian, regardless of party, regardless of whether they hold a party membership card or not, if they're interested and passionate about the same issues that motivate me: better education, more mental health support, affordable housing, economic dignity, a clean environment. If there are people in this province, including in the legislature after June 2nd, who are prepared to focus on those priorities that I have, I'll work with any one of them. Just one person I know for sure who needs to be stopped at all costs, and that's Doug Ford, and that's what I'm working hard to do.
Okay. 2 more questions for you.
Yes.
Okay, who lies the most out of all the leaders? Out of all 4 leaders, including yourself. I don't think you're going to say yourself, but if you want to, that's up to you. Who lies the most? I've asked all the other ones who agreed to the interview.
Okay. We both looked at the same time. You know what, I'll tell you, the night of the debate, I
Yeah.
said at one point when I heard Doug Ford talking repeatedly about what he was doing in education, I believe it was on this particular issue, I said, Mr. Ford, you are entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. And I think that helps you to understand who I think has not clearly been leveling with the people of Ontario through 4 years and through this campaign. And that's not good enough. That leadership where you're just making it up as you go along, where you're, in his case, reading the lines, the scripts that other people write for you, that's not good enough. We need real leadership that's responsible and competent. Doug Ford can't deliver it. I can.
So your answer is Doug
can.
Ford. Okay. But who would you grab a drink with out of all the other three party leaders? Who would you be most interested in grabbing a drink with?
You know, I think in my time as leader, the person who I think I've had the most conversations with probably be Mike Schreiner from the Green Party.
Okay.
Decent guy, seems to, we have a lot of issues where we share a passion, like the environment, and like so much else. He and I both drive the same electric vehicle. At least I think he's still got his, I've got mine. So yeah, I'd sit down and have a coffee or a drink with Mike for sure.
Do you want to know what they chose?
Sure.
Okay, so Mike Schreiner said Andrea Horwath.
Yeah, it's okay.
And Andrea Horwath.
Can I change my?
No.
I'm kidding. I'm only joking.
And Andrea Horwath said Mike Schreiner.
Wow, look at that.
So you got left out of the party.
Well, that's okay. It's like high school all over again. It's fine. Yeah,
Okay. Any last words you want to tell the people? 1 week away from election day. Any last words you want to say?
Yeah, look, first of all, thanks again for this opportunity. And secondly, I'm motivated every single day of the week to make sure that my kids, my daughters, who are 14 and 11, grow up in a province that gives them the same kind of opportunity, if not more, hopefully more, than I had growing up here a generation ago. And the way to do that is to honor the sacrifice and the dedication of our parents and grandparents, build up the future for them and for all of Ontarians like them, expanding opportunity at all times. And my commitment, regardless of anything else, my commitment is to always work relentlessly to deliver real progress for the people of this province, and that's what I'll continue to do.
All right. Well, Stephen Del Duca, leader of the Ontario Liberals, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Brennan.
Good luck. Where are you going to be on election night?
I'm going to be in my home community of Vaughan Woodbridge with my family.
Nobody's going to be in Toronto. What the heck? All righty. Well, good luck.
Thank you. Really appreciate this chance.
Hey BG Squad, thanks so much for checking out our channel, and listen to this, we have more great content for you, like this video right here and this video right here. By the way, don't forget to subscribe to this channel right now and tap that notification bell.